Welcome to Hindsight the Podcast, where bold stories and honest reflections meet real growth. I'm Lee Jones, your host, and every week I sit down with incredible people who turn life's turning points into powerful transformations. And if you're navigating change or chasing purpose, then you're in the right place.
You know, man, before we get started, again, I don't know if we live or whatever, but I just want to thank you for your service first and foremost. So I watched a couple of your podcasts. I live in San Antonio, so I'm around military people, all the time. And, and I can admit this now, but up until probably about 10 years ago, I didn't really understand what the military was. And I just thought like they either you shoot them or they shoot you. Like I didn't really understand a whole lot about the military. So I was ignorant about it, even though I got people in my family that's in the military. But it's like the more that I really understood it, the more that I really honor the people in it more than the system that created it. I just want to personally thank you because people don't understand the kind of sacrifices that people make for people to have certain privileges that they get to experience, and people take it for granted all the time, and the thing that I also like about, you just in general, I don't really know you like that, but just listen to your podcast is your ability to be transparent. Like a lot of people are just not honest and authentic and transparent. And I like that about you because the thing that I saw from the two podcast guests that I saw, it's like you made them feel comfortable also being transparent because you did it first. And I appreciate you for that.
Oh man, dang, way to set the show off, Chris.
Yeah.
my man. Hey, I really do appreciate the kind words and thank you so much for acknowledging, that, some of the things that we do in the military, anybody can do it right, but most people don't choose to do it. And just for vulnerability, I went in because I just was immature at the time. I had a great job. I got out of high school. I didn't want to go to college at the time.
Yeah.
So I went to a trade school. And it was great. It was everything I thought adulting was supposed to be.
Okay.
I had slacks on. I had the dress shirt. I'm looking the part. I'm super young. Got a nice car. Look at Lee. He's killing it, right? And I wasn't killing it, right? Because I was just starting. But I looked the part.
Yeah.
But I couldn't play the part because I was just too immature at the time. And for some reason, not for some reason, I was looking at TV, and I think the first golf thing was happening.
Yeah.
And I saw the soldiers getting on the airplane, and something in that resonated with me, and I became interested. And then about a year later, I joined the military. So, so I went in just being a dumb kid who wasn't prepared to be an adult, I guess. And I tell you one thing, Chris. You get in the military, you're gonna grow up. You're gonna grow up real quick. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But anyway, I thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. No, I again, like I just have so much more respect for people that go into the military now knowing what I know. Cause like I got a lot of military friends now, that are retired, some are still active. And so they've educated me in a way that I just didn't know before. And so it's like, because of what I know, it's like, man, my respect level for military people, I don't care if you're 18 going, like it's just so much higher because even though you said anybody can do it, you understand just like I do, lots start, but very few people finish. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things too, where like one of the most valuable things that I think we have is time. And it's like the fact that like people like yourself and people that have served, like you guys have sacrificed your life to give people like me the freedom of time to do whatever. Like I don't have to worry about some of the things that you guys have already taken care of. I'm not worried about bombing my neighborhood and just so many things that people take for granted because people in different countries, they got to worry about that every single day. People over here, we don't have to worry about that because of people like you. And it gives us the time to focus on other stuff, whether we're wasting the time or whatever, we still have it because you've given us that freedom to do that.
When I went in, the first 10 years of my career was, I call it the non-war years. So it was just about just being in the Army training. So, I mean, training is a lot in that. It's a lot of mental training, a lot of physical and all of that stuff. But it wasn't until the second half of my career when, started deploying to different places, Iraq and, Bosnia for peacekeeping operations, where it becomes like, oh, but thankfully in that time period, my mind starts to shift, right?
Yeah.
Because now I'm not really immature.
Right.
Now I can take on that responsibility. But just understanding when I raised my hand, I wasn't raising my hand for you, Chris, or anybody else out there. You feel me? It was all about me.
That's everything I was talking about, the
I,
transparency. I love it, man. I appreciate it.
my man.
When you look back in hindsight, everything is 2020. In hindsight, we make mistakes, we're learning from it. In hindsight, shaping yesterday and your tomorrow. In hindsight, is so much clearer now.
All right. Have you ever been told that you weren't good enough and believed it? What if the very thing you once saw as your greatest weakness was actually your greatest gift? Chris Cannon is a global speaker and storytelling strategist who helps purpose-driven entrepreneurs accelerate their influence, income, and impact using the power of their personal stories. From struggling with dyslexia and shame to speaking on stages worldwide, Chris discovered that the stories we're afraid to tell often hold the most power.
Yeah.
And today we're going to unpack how to turn pain into purpose and become, hopefully, a six-figure storyteller in the process. I like this one. How you doing again? We've already talked, so do I need to say how we doing?
Hey, I'm doing great because I'm on here with you, and I was even doing great back then, but now I'm even doing better. So everything is good.
Oh, that's my man. That's my man. How is Texas right now? How's the weather out there?
You know,
San Antonio.
honestly, it's raining a little bit here, but I mean, it's still great. It's no snow, no hurricane, no tornadoes. So, hey, I'll take a little bit of rain today, but it's pretty good.
I know. Lead them tornadoes up in the sky. I know that's right.
Yeah.
Hey, so this is Hindsight the Podcast, Chris. So let's just start at the beginning.
All right.
What do you what do you remember most about that moment in third grade when everything seemed to confirm your deepest fears?
What I remember most is being 6 people away, and 6 people away, meaning that old school
Mm,
back when I was, elementary, in my elementary school, we took turns to read. Like everybody in the entire room had to read. And we would take turns and people would read a portion and the next person would read. And I just remember it was 6 people away and it was my turn. And I
mhm,
dreaded that and I hated it because I knew when it came to me that everybody was going to find out that I wasn't who they thought I was because I didn't know how to read. And
mm,
so that happened about 4 times, and every time it would get to me, I was either sick, or I had to go to the bathroom, or I made up some kind of excuse to get my teacher, like, to allow me to just, like, not be in that situation. And I remember when it
mhm,
came to the 4th time, I would raise my hand. Her name was Miss Anderson. I love her to death. And I raised my hand. I said, Miss Anderson, can I have to go to the bathroom really bad? And so this time was a little bit different. Even though she was a nice lady, she looked at me and she said, Chris, she was like, you're not sick. You're not going to the bathroom. You're not anything but reading. You're reading today.
mm, mm,
And I said, Miss Anderson, please, I got to go to the bathroom. She said, if you got to go to the bathroom, we'll all figure it out after you read.
mhm,
And so I'm like, wow. And so I just remember opening up the book. And again, I was told that I was labeled dyslexic. And so I learned what that was. And it's like all of the words, like it seemed like they was like having this party, like jumbling around, dancing,
mm,
and I just remember I was struggling to read and I got to like the 4th word and it seemed like forever. And I'm pausing and all of the kids was like, that, 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 that.
yeah,
That was the
yeah,
word. It was that. I didn't know what it said. And I just remember like I struggled all the way till I got to the end. And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, I hope I never have to experience that again. I'm thinking like, man, all of my friends that were like, we played together, like they probably don't want to play with me anymore because they think I'm
mm,
stupid, all these different things. And I just
yeah,
remember like after I read, I just put my head down for the rest of that class period And all of these different stories was coming to my head, like
Mhm,
I
mhm.
even had a girlfriend back then, believe it or not. I'm like, man, my girlfriend probably don't like me. My friends don't like me. Everybody gonna find out like I'm dumb. I can't
Yeah,
read, like all of these
yeah.
different things. And I remember like after school, it was a group of people walking and they were laughing. Now, I don't know if they were laughing at me or not, but all of my insecurities was like, everybody that's laughing right now, everybody that's talking, like everybody's laughing at me, like they're talking about me, like they're, think I'm stupid and dumb. And it was just reinforced when I
Mhm,
got home because my mom, like, she had a bad day, specifically that day. And I just remember her getting upset with me, and famous words that you hear from a lot of single parents, specifically Black mothers, is you act just like your
mhm. Yeah,
daddy.
yeah,
And my father barely graduated from high school. Successful
yeah.
entrepreneur, but he barely graduated from high school. He couldn't really read that well as well. So when she said that, not knowing what kind of day that I had earlier that day, it just reinforced all of the different stories that I told myself during that time where I'm struggling through getting through this section of reading.
Mhm,
And a lot of other things, happened, from that. And Miss Anderson, she turned out to be like my number one advocate. And I
mhm,
remember her telling me like 2 days later, because this was like on a Monday, and 2 days later on a Wednesday, like she kept me after class and she said, listen, I want you to know something. I can't help you if I don't know what's going on with you. And I'm willing to do whatever I can to help you. And
mm,
long story short, I end up failing the third grade. And I
mhm,
remember at the end of the school year, Miss Anderson took me and two other guys in this empty classroom. And she said, listen, all three of you are going to fail the third grade. Do you want
mhm,
to stick in my class or do you want to go to Miss Dewsbeaver's class? That was another third grade teacher. And so I said, I want to stay in your class. And through reading, and again, I still wasn't a great reader that second year in third grade again,
mhm,
but through reading like her and just like some of the things that she had us read, it allowed me to see the world and it allowed me to see myself bigger than I was. And
mm,
when I went on, my grades were still horrible because I had all these negative beliefs about myself. I'm still telling myself stories and things like that. And it wasn't until I got to the sixth grade that everything changed for me. And I was still struggling with what happened in the third grade. And I remember, and I don't really remember like how it happened, but one of my counselors, she pulled me out of class one day. And I remember she was just talking to me and she was asking me, like, is everything okay? Are you doing good? And I was just telling her, like, I just don't feel smart. And she
mhm,
said,
mm,
when was the first time you ever felt like that? And so I told her about my third grade experience. And I told her I failed the third grade. And she asked me a really powerful question, and that transformed everything. She said, how do you know that the grade you're in now is not the grade that you were supposed to be in the entire time, but it took you repeating the third grade to get there?
mhm,
That changed
mhm.
everything because I'm like, maybe this is the grade that I'm supposed to be in, but it took me
Yeah.
repeating the third grade a couple years ago to be in this right grade because this is where I'm supposed to be at. And it's like from
Mhm,
there, like everything changed for me because I didn't look at myself as dumb and stupid anymore. I looked at myself as what I was back then was
mhm.
what had to happen in order for me to be where I am today. It took, me failing
Yeah.
all those kind of things. And it's like from there, like I went from being an all C and D student to being an all A and B, and it just really changed, my life with that one question. But hopefully, I know that was kind of long, but hopefully it answered your question
No,
what
that's
you even,
dope.
asked.
Yeah. No, that sets up a lot, right? Because a lot of the things that who we become are predicated on some of the experiences that we go through, typically when we're young.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So you spoke openly about growing up with labels like at risk and slow learner.
Yeah.
How did those, and you said a little bit, but how did those early experiences shape your self-worth?
It really reinforced that I wasn't enough, because
Mm, yeah.
my mother and father were 13 and 14 when I was conceived. And
Mhm.
so it's like I
Wow.
heard a lot of people even in my family, like they expected me to be a failure, teen parent,
Yeah.
he failed the 3rd grade. He's labeled dyslexic. I lived in like low income neighborhoods. And so it
Yeah.
was a lot of like just low expectation for me. And it just reinforced that I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And I just remember I was a great athlete. Like that was my saving grace. Like Chris is fast, he's strong, all these kind of things. Like that was my strength. But
Yeah.
outside of that, like anything like reading academic wise, I mean, it was my kryptonite, but it was a lot of the things that I heard just reinforced the limitations that I had on myself, that I thought about myself and that I placed on myself. And it's like when I was in 7th grade, my school picked me of one of 2 people in the entire school to go to a leadership conference. And it wasn't,
Mm.
like one of those things where I was like the star student, if you will. I think they just saw potential in me. And they're like, look,
Mhm.
if we can get him around other people, like we can get his potential out. And I'm so grateful that they selected me. But I remember it was like students from all over like the state at that time. I lived in Michigan. And one of the
Mhm.
speakers there was Les Brown. Les Brown shared his story about
Mm.
being labeled educable, mentally retarded, and some of his other stories and things like that. And I resonated with that because I'm like, I was labeled dyslexic. Like I wasn't to the extent that he was, but it's like when he
Yeah.
talked and he shared openly about his story, I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to help people with my story. Like, I want to help people to understand that the very thing that people like counted you out for, they talked about you that could have been, a liability, like that's an asset. Because guess what? He felt like I did, and that's hopeless.
Yeah.
I felt hopeless just
Mm.
like he did. But look where he's at. And it's like when
Mhm.
I saw him, that allowed me to see like what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to help people in that capacity. And at that time, I didn't know how much people made like doing that. But then after I
Mhm.
made
Mhm.
saw like how much they made, I'm like, oh, I really want to I really want to do that,
Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
it wasn't
Yeah.
about the money, but it just definitely inspired it even more.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we live in America.
Yeah,
Money is a big thing in this country. So
exactly.
nothing wrong with that. Hey, so did you give a speech in school?
I did. So it was
So
go ahead.
yeah. So I was gonna say that like that first speech you gave, what made you say yes, and what surprised you most about it? About how the story was received.
The thing that made me say yes was I felt like I owed the person who asked me to do it.
Mm.
And that was my high school counselor.
Mhm.
And like he poured so much into my life. And even to this day, like he and I, we're still like really, really good friends, believe it or not, like
Oh,
after all
that's
of these
dope.
years. But he poured so much
Wow.
into my life. And he asked me to speak to a group of elementary school kids in a DARE program, like kids staying away from drugs and alcohol, things like that.
Mhm, mhm,
And I
mhm.
remember, he asked me would I do it. And a part of me, like, I didn't want to do it, but I'm like, this is Mr. Drucker. Like, he's giving me so much. How
Yeah,
can I possibly tell him no? And so,
yeah.
like, that's kind of how it started. And when I went and talked to those kids, that was one of the best feelings I had ever felt in my life up to that point because it was so fulfilling to share parts of my story with people that are just like I was, and to see, like,
Mhm.
their response. It was kinda like I was their Les Brown for them, like Les Brown was for me, and it's like they like, I literally, like, saw, like, a world open up for them based on a question that they were asking me afterwards because as I spoke, it was, like, 10 minutes for Q&A, and just some of the questions that they asked me is just
Mm.
man, this is just so incredible. And I was grateful for Mr. Drucker for even asking me, but like me being in feeling like I was indebted to him, like that's the thing that made me say yes.
Yeah. Man, he sparked it, didn't he?
He did. He definitely
He
did.
sparked it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So you say that storytelling isn't just about the past, it's about shaping the future. Can you break down what that means and how you've seen it change lives?
So one thing I think that's really important to understand is that there's two different types of stories. There's external stories and then there's internal stories.
Speak.
Most people focus on the external stories, like like the rhythm, the tone of your voice, like the cadence, like the order in which you tell certain things. And those things are all great. They're phenomenal. However, I really believe that the most important aspect of storytelling is the internal story. And here's how it can shape the future, because a lot of what we experience as it relates to fear is always something in the future. Like, fear does not live in the present. It's not even possible for fear to live in the present. I know people will disagree, but hear me out here. Think about if you are at a grocery store and it's only one way out. And as you're trying to get out to go to your car, you see this big python that's like right at the door. And you're thinking like, man, are there other snakes around this grocery store? Like where did these even come from anyway? And it's like all of a sudden you see a snake that comes behind you. And there's only two ways you can go. You can either go backward to that snake or you go forward to this big python. Somebody, they choose to go forward because they're like, the python, they're not venomous. Like, they can wrap me up and squeeze me to death and kill me, but this one is venomous. And so they walk forward to this python. And all of a sudden, the python is coming towards them. They're not worried about dying. They're worried about getting bit. They're worried about getting squeezed to death, right? So you think about it. That has not happened yet. And if they choose to go backwards, the poisonous snake, it's like, okay, they're worried about that snake like biting them. And let's say the snake behind them, it does bite them. At that point, they're not worried about getting bit anymore because they already got bit. Now they're worried about dying.
Yeah.
But you think about it, both of those things are future events. It's something that has not happened yet. Like, the things that we fear, again, we see a snake, we fear getting bit. We didn't get bit yet. When we get bit, we don't think about getting bit. We already got bit. So now we're thinking about dying. And so when you think about fear, and anybody can challenge this, like any fear that any of us have ever had, it's always been in the future.
Yeah.
We anticipate something that's about to happen, not something that already happened. And so when you think about it, that is a story. Like, that's an internal story. As a man, like, you see a beautiful woman out, you're single and you want to approach her. And a part of you feels intimidated because she's out of your league. You feel like you're a 6 and she's an 11. She's out of your league. That's a story. Because you and I have both seen a lot of men that are with some beautiful women, and we question, man, how in the world did he get her?
He asked.
Exactly. And guess what? He
and we sit here creating stories in our head. So
exactly. And so, like, when it comes to the future, like, the internal stories that we tell ourselves really shapes it more than we ever know, because a lot of times we don't realize that what we expect is what we experience. And a lot of people have negative stories, and because of their negative stories and what they expect, that's what they experience. Like, there's something called the reticular activation system, just fancy word to say like there's a small mechanism in your brain. And let's say, like, you want to buy a red Porsche, and before you got in your mind, you want to buy this red Porsche, you didn't really see a lot of red Porsches anywhere. But now that you want to buy one, you see red Porsches like everywhere. And you're like, man, where did all of these red Porsches come from? Guess what? They've always been there. But because they're now in your awareness and they're in your reticular activation system, your subconscious mind now allows your conscious mind to actually see them there. But they've always been there. That can serve you, and it can also sabotage you on the same side as it relates to stories and anticipation. And so a lot of people anticipate negativity, and that's exactly what they get because of the stories that they tell themselves. And a lot of people expect positivity, and they get the same thing because of what they expect. So it's like whatever you expect is what you experience, but it all starts with your story.
I like it. I try to talk about that a little bit. You've gone into some real some depths to it. The stories that you tell yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
the power of those
Oh
stories,
yeah,
especially when it comes to making decisions and making choices,
definitely.
right? And how those choice. So it's like a chain reaction.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because then you make these choices, these decisions, whichever one you want to use, and in those choices and decisions is what's going to create your life
Right.
in a sense, right? So you got to live with those.
Yes.
What How important you kind of talked about both. You expect good, you expect bad. How do you reprogram yourself to expect the good instead of expecting the bad? And it's hard to do that because I know part of it is from the prehistoric brain or
Right.
whatever and survival,
Yeah.
right? So you have to think like that to survive. And you still need to do that in certain situations here.
Right.
Especially if you're in the military. But
Yeah,
but they teach
definitely.
they teach us to run towards the stuff anyway. So I guess that training. But but what is how do you reprogram yourself? Barring going to the military basic training and all that. What is something that we can do here that can help us to shift that mindset
So
and
so
to change the stories?
so phenomenal question, and
Yeah.
first and foremost, we need to understand that immersion causes conversion. And so
Hmm.
sometimes it
Hmm.
takes us immersing ourselves in something. And how can you do that? Do something small, incremental every single day to start to transform that story. And how do you even do that? So one thing that most of us are very good at, we're very good at
Hmm.
arguing. We're phenomenal at arguing. You know, whether we're arguing with
Yeah.
ourselves or whether we're arguing with somebody else. And so
Yeah.
the thing that I actually tell people to do is when it comes to whatever you feel like you're not enough in, whether you feel like, for me, like I didn't feel like I was enough to charge for my speaking. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
industry standard at one point was like $2,000. Like that was
Hmm.
entry. I was charging 1,100. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
speaking on stage with other people. They're charging 5,000, 10,000, even 20,000. I'm charging 1,100 because I didn't feel like I was enough. Like that was my story. And so how
Mm.
how I overcame it and how other people can do that is you start arguing. You argue why you deserve more. So it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. Like if you feel like, hey, I can't charge this, figure out some kind of way to argue against why you should charge more. So for me, I
Mm.
started thinking like, man, at the time I'm 27. I have 27 years of experience, the bumps, bruises, the bleeds, the cries, like research. Like I've done all of these different things. And it's like for me to charge somebody $1,100 for all of that experience, that's not fair to them. Because I'm not
Mm.
allowing them to value the value that I'm actually giving them. So
Mm.
I need to charge more just for the sake of them, not even me. Like even if I take the
Yeah.
rest of the money and give it away, like I have to charge them so that they can actually get the value that I'm giving them. Because even though I might give 5,000 worth of value, if they're only paying 1,100, they're only valuing 1,100. So I'm not
Yeah.
being fair to them. And so what I started doing is I started finding things to argue against.
Mhm.
And the way
Mhm.
that you do that is I deserve this because.
Yeah.
And that whatever you want to say on the side of because, like that's your argument. Like people
Yeah.
teach people a lot of, and I'm not saying that these things are wrong. To me, they just don't work as good. But people teach people about like affirmations. And it's like
Mhm.
sometimes you can say things over and over and over again, but you still don't believe them. And
Yeah.
you don't believe them because you don't have a reason to. But when you argue against something, the arguing actually
Mm.
gives you a reason. So it's like for me, like it's important for me to charge more because, and the because is like I had 27 years of experience and I'm not allowing these people to value me and what I'm giving them at the level. So that argument
Yeah.
gave me a reason. And the mind, it always wants to know why.
Yeah.
Like the mind, like you can never leave the mind without answering that question. Like if somebody was like, why did somebody reject me? Because you're ugly, you're stupid, your breath stink, like you're broke. The mind is going to create the reason why if you don't give it a reason why. So when you can actually come
Yeah.
up with an argument and you give the brain a reason why, then it starts to actually create neural network pathways to start believing it.
Man. So you got to get your brain, your own mind to buy in.
You do.
I like that. I like that. That's interesting. You know part of that. Well, everybody doesn't know, but I'd assume most people know that we kind of fill in the blanks on stuff.
Yeah.
And we do it based off of, unfortunately, we do certain things based off of our own history,
Right.
our own experiences and circumstances.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other reality existence
Yeah.
out there from everybody else, right? So just understanding that, like, we're so limited in what we can perceive,
Definitely.
and the more that we seek curiosity, I was just talking to a guy. The more that we seek curiosity, the more we understand.
100%.
The more our reality the more our reality widens, and then we can make better decisions. I always try to bring it back to, getting as much information, getting as much experience with things, so that when those choices and decisions that come up to us every day, 30,000 choices of decisions that we got to make a day, plus, we make better decisions each time we go along. But I love that. I love that statement. Is it immersion to conversion, or what was it?
Immersion causes conversion.
Causes. I like that. Because right now I still can't speak Spanish because I didn't immerse myself in the culture.
Okay.
But anyway, I need those credits, man. I need those credits. I need to immerse myself, and people keep telling me that, But anyway, I digress. Hey, so let's change this up a little bit.
Okay.
What's the first step that someone should take if they're afraid to share their story or unsure they even have one worth sharing?
First and foremost, everybody has a story that's worth sharing. And here's why I say that, because no matter what happened to you in your life, I would bet a large sum of money that there's somebody successful that you can find somewhere that started where you started. They had a similar experience that you had. And it's like, if you can now see their value based on where they were, and where they were is exactly where you are, that's just confirmation. And that's evidence and proof that your story is as valuable, if not more valuable, than theirs are to their people. Because I think the thing that we look at is we look at other people and we look at their audience, not realizing that their audience is not our audience. Their people is not our people, but there is somebody for everybody. Like people argue, who's the greatest motivational speaker in the world? You can never, ever determine that, because people like different things. The greatest basketball player in the world, that can never, ever be like unified, agreed upon, because people like different things. And so when it comes to people's story, like, number one, everybody has a story, because when you think about whatever you experienced, whatever you went through, shame, guilt, loss, failure, whatever the case may be, can you teach somebody from that experience? 100%. So if there's a little kid who's 6 years old, they're curious, and it's like you have the chance to help them to avoid what you experienced at 21, or what you experienced at 13, or what you experienced at 37. That's power in your story. Yeah. Whenever you can take something in your life and cause somebody else to avoid that pain, that's evidence that your story is not only worth sharing, but it's almost something that you're purposed to do.
You told a story, or you told us about your experience, which you turned into a story, which advocating that we should all do. It didn't resonate, but it sounded very familiar to me. And just to your point about, you found a celebrity or someone who was very successful, and there may be similar things that happened to them in their past. So I was looking at, I think it was a 25th anniversary for BET, something like that.
Okay.
And Dave Chappelle and D.L. Hughley were supposed to be reading this thing to introduce somebody. And so Dave Chappelle goes to this thing. It's so funny. I'll look at that thing like every couple years because it's so hilarious, but he's telling a story. And he's telling a story about how he hated to read in front of people. And it started in school when he was young. because people would talk about how he read and things like that. And he would do all kinds of things. And you said it just earlier. He would do all types of things to avoid having to have to read in front of people.
Mm.
And he goes to this hilarious pitch, and he's just hitting people out. He hit Joe, who was out in the audience, the singer, and he was saying something to somebody else. He just kept changing the subject. Like he would be like, and then Joe, you need to stop. He would do these things. And at the end of probably about a 15-minute little preempted or whatever you want to call it, skit. It wasn't meant to be a skit. He ends it and he says, I told y'all I will do almost anything not to have to read in public. Right. But that when you was talking about, I got to go to the bathroom, I'm sick, you know what I'm saying? I'm thinking, man, he made his comedically.
Yeah.
But he's telling the same story. And it's because a lot of people had that experience.
Yeah.
I knew when I was in school, I could read, but like I was getting C's or B's in reading. You know how they used to have like just reading, and you had to read in class. And I was like, God dang, I can read better than that. But, I wasn't reading as good as some of the other kids in the class. And I developed a complex about that.
Yeah.
And then to your point, I didn't want to read in front of people because I'm not good. And what do they think of me? So all of these things resonate. And that's the importance of telling your story, because it doesn't have to be something that keeps you stuck.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You could still get out there and tell your story and read and all this. Anyway, I digress, but I just wanted to tell you that when you said it, like, I think I'm going to send you the link because I want you to see this.
I do.
And it will probably resonate with you. You'd be like, man, I was feeling just like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm going to definitely send that to you.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right. So you now teach purpose-driven entrepreneurs how to magnetize premium clients through storytelling. What does that process actually look like?
What the process looks like, number one, is like what is their either area of expertise or what is their area of interest? Because there are some people where they might not be an expert in something yet, but they have an interest in it. And it's like, okay, well, who do you want to help? How do you want to help them? And from there, we figure out like what story can you tell to differentiate yourself from everybody else? Because when you look at like the online space, I mean, it is like the 101, at 12 p.m. Like it's just crowded, and you can't really distinguish yourself. And so the one thing that helps to distinguish all of us is our story. And so like I help them to come up with a story that is applicable to the audience that they want to serve. And from there, I help them to create a high ticket offer, a premium offer, as you said, because high ticket more so means what the person selling is going to get in terms of price. But when you say premium value offer, it's what the people that's investing in it, they're going to get a premium experience, And so I do help people to create like high value premium offers. And the reason why I focus on more higher ticket premium offers is because when people invest money, they also invest attention that's equivalent to their financial investment. I can say this wholeheartedly, like there's like over the past 10 years, I can't tell you how many $37, $47, $97 products and things like that that's collected all of this virtual dust because of how little that I paid for it. But the programs that I invest, $2,000, $5,000, $20,000, like I'm showing up totally different. And sometimes when you really want to help people, you have to make them stretch a little bit. Like you have to get some kind of sacrifice, from them. And sometimes it's like when we don't charge people enough, we do them a disservice. And I remember one of my mentors, he told me that he charges people a lot of money to help them.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I was in his program at the time and I was a little offended because, and again, I'm just sharing this for the sake of sharing, but it was a $55,000 program. And so I'm like, how are you helping me, charging me like this amount of money? But what he said was this. He said, it's not so much how much you invest for content, but who you become in the process of the investment. And
Mm.
so when he said that, it allowed me to see that, you know what? I invested this amount of money because I now see myself as more valuable than I did when I was only
Yeah.
investing $37. And now I'm showing up a lot different than I was when I was only charging $37, because it's not so much about the content as it is about the person that you become. And I think like
Mm.
that's a big thing that a lot of people just in general don't focus on, is like who you're becoming. Like we focus a lot on the doing, and especially as men, like we're all about the doing, but sometimes we don't
Mhm.
focus enough on the being part, because it's like
Yeah.
when you focus on the being part, the doing and the having, it take care of itself, you know? And I remember
Yeah.
like before I, started making multiple six figures, like I'm putting in all of the effort, like I'm showing up, putting in all of the time, but my identity and my thought process
Mhm.
and the internal image that I had of myself would not allow me to make over a certain period of time, like money. Like I had this invisible cap I didn't even know existed. And it's like I
Mhm.
later learned that whatever inner image you have of yourself is always going to be followed with an outward expression. Doesn't matter what it is financially. And I remember,
Interesting.
like, once I made that investment, like a higher investment, six figures became a lot easier to make. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it became a lot easier to make. Like it was really, really simple, but it was more so
Yeah.
about who I was, like my being
Yeah.
who I was. And I started like trying to reverse engineer, how did I do that? And from that, I started teaching other people the whole like it's more important to be, do, and then have, not have, do, and then be. Like it's a totally reverse process. And so like some of my clients, it's like, hey, if you want to be a multiple six-figure earner, think about, how does that person talk? What do they eat for breakfast in the morning? Like, how do they show up? What things inspire them? How do they show up for their family? Like, really take on that persona. You put on that identity until it becomes you. And it's like, once you become that, anything that you wanted is going to be yours by default, because that's the person that you are.
Yeah. Oh, that is important. That is important. And you talked about it earlier, getting that mind to buy in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You gotta raise the cap,
Yeah.
raise the roof,
Yeah.
get that unlimited mentality. I like that.
Yeah.
I like this. So, I'm sitting there and I'm saying these things and I'm reiterating it because, it's resonating with me. I got a cap on certain things as well. I have self-doubt in areas, right? I wrote a book and I'm like, who's gonna read it?
Yeah.
You
I've
know,
been there before.
start canceling. Yeah, who's gonna listen? So it's something that I believe. Hearing great people like yourself, um, that it's you constantly work on it,
Yeah.
right? Because your mind is constantly working, it's constantly telling stories,
Yeah.
and you have to immerse yourself. I'm learning new words. You have to immerse yourself in the idea of thinking more positively
Yeah.
than you do negatively, because they're both there,
Oh, yeah.
and it's just a matter of which one you listen to.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah. And I'll
so
be honestly, like, I think that no matter who we are, I think we all have
yeah,
a cap. Some people's cap
yeah,
higher than others, but I think we all have a cap. Like,
that's true.
I was in a room recently where, believe it or not, like there's people that's making $1 million in a day.
Yeah, I
And
know, I know.
yeah, now it's not
Yeah.
every day. Like they might do an event like once.
No, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
making $1 million in a day, and then you have somebody else who made 200,000 in one day, and
yeah,
they feel small and insignificant, and like they're not enough because they're in the same room with this other person that made $1 million in a day. You
mm.
know, but then you have some people in totally different rooms where they're making $1 million a minute, like they're on a whole different level. And
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it's all caps based on our awareness. Like myself personally, I don't have the awareness of what it takes to become a billionaire. I just don't have that awareness.
Yeah.
You take somebody like Elon Musk, like he goes broke today, by, next Wednesday, he might be a billionaire all over again because of his
I know.
awareness, you know?
Yeah.
And so like we all have different caps at different levels. I think that sometimes we don't realize that as long as you maximize your capacity, you're successful. Because there are some people,
Mm,
they're just not meant to be a billionaire. Some people are not even meant to be
mhm.
a millionaire. But to make six figures, have a great life, help people, it's like, how did you possibly lose? You only
Yeah.
lose when you compare yourself to somebody else who has different, because more
Mm.
money doesn't mean that they have more than you. Because some people have billions of dollars, but I tell you, their marriage, their kid relationship, like, it's horrible. And if they can exchange that for what you have and have a great relationship, they would do it in a heartbeat.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? We always look to others.
Yeah.
We always look at the grass being greener. Um, and that is an interesting perspective. You know, you're trying to be them, they trying to be you.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's weird, and you don't know it. You don't
Yeah.
know it because you're all, you know, your mind is telling you these stories.
Yeah.
All right. So a lot of people, I believe. Okay, I won't say a lot of people. I'll say me. Feel like I need to have it all together before telling my story. So how do you help me move past that mindset?
The one thing that I would say to you is, when you yourself, you watch a movie, and this movie is about somebody, in the end, they became extremely wealthy. You yourself, would you want to see the movie where the person is born into a family that literally gave him $400 million to start off with? He's never had to struggle. Everything has been great. He's had a silver spoon his whole life. He's inducted into his father's trillionaire network. Do you want to see that movie? Of course you don't, because that movie is boring, and it's a movie you can't relate to it. Like, you can't relate to that. Now, when he becomes a millionaire in the end, but he was homeless at one point, he got a job, he was working, and he saved up $5,000, and somehow, somebody got into his account, they stole all of his money. He was 3 days away from being evicted. He didn't have any money, didn't know how he was going to work out. But then he met this man who was willing to loan him $37 to give to his landlord to pay the late fee, just to give him one more week. And somehow this guy, he figured out how to invent a book that can help people immediately become more successful at telling themselves stories. And from this book, he sold 100 copies, and then 1,000 copies. And before you know it, he was a multi-millionaire, but he was homeless at one point. We want to see that story, because it started off where our lowest point was. And so why do I say that? I say that because when you have it all together, nobody can relate to you. Nobody wants to hear that story from you. Like, people want to go on the journey with you right now. And if you wait until you're perfect, you're going to lose and leave behind all of the people that you're truly meant to serve, because now you're showing them that I'm too high for you to even connect with. And that's not what you want to do.
Yeah. Unless you look at certain reality TV shows. But I digress. Joker just got it all. God dang it, complaining and upset about everything because they don't have it all.
Yeah, but
they just got a lot. They just got a lot of money, huh?
But
What's that?
a lot of people do appreciate the journey. Like it's so
Yes,
many
I get
people who like believe it or not, like, their success in life is to be able to say, I saw Lee when he was just getting started. I saw Lee's first podcast. I saw Lee, like, the first time he ever posted a podcast on YouTube. Like, I saw the first one. Like, that's some people's, their entire success in life. And sometimes, if we don't share our start with people, we're robbing people of an opportunity to have their success and their hope be hinged on what they saw was possible in us. But it's really fear that keeps us in this story of, I need to have it all together before I put it out to the world.
Yeah.
You miss so many people who you're sent to serve by doing that. And I know that's definitely easier said than done, because it's something that I have struggled with, myself as well.
Yeah. Hey, so all right, so now we got a story. We got our lives. We're looking at all of these different things, and we can remember certain stuff that happens to us, right? And we're like, maybe that'll make for a good story. Like, how do you go and you start to craft your story? And then my biggest struggle is knowing when to apply that story. Or do you just so for you may just make it, that story, the third grade story, a part of your story that you're telling the people to say, hey, I started here and I work my way up, mindset, stories, and all this other stuff, right? So how does someone begin to create a structure and then be able to apply that story to others?
So the first thing is, number one, understanding that we have multiple stories.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So even my third grade story, there's probably about 6 stories within that story that I can break out that
Mm,
are all separate. You know,
okay.
and like there's so many different stories that we have, but understanding that, number one, that we have multiple stories, then second, understanding your audience. Because when you understand your audience and your target, who you're really trying to go after and how you want to help them, now that determines what story you're actually going to use of yours to connect with them. Because most people want to know, how do you know what it's like to be me?
Mm,
And so when you number one, you understand your target audience, and then you understand like what story you have that can resonate with them, then you allow them to understand that you know exactly what it's like to be them. Now they unconsciously give you the ability to influence them because they're like, okay, you understand me. Like somebody finally gets what it's like to be me. And
mhm,
then on top of that, like, and there's so many different ways to do it, but when
mhm.
you're selling something, there's different things that you could do within like your process to sell people on like why your product is the best. So for instance,
Yeah.
one of the products I used to sell, a few years ago, I don't really sell it anymore. But it was a higher ticket product, and I talked
Mhm.
about like I had two different versions of Chris. I had courageous Chris, and I had no confidence Chris. And so I started identifying, all these different characteristics of no confidence, Chris. He always telling himself these stories like he can't afford it, he's not worth it. Where is he going to get the money from? And so I'm telling all of these different stories, and it's like these stories are exactly what these stories that people are telling themselves that's on my presentation. They're telling themselves, "Oh,
Mm,
I can't afford this. Like I'm not enough. Let me wait until
yeah,
later on." But it's like, who wants to be the person with no confidence? Nobody.
yeah,
But what I did is I identified myself, like Chris with no
yeah,
confidence, but also Chris with courage. And then I told another story about Chris with courage. Like, hey, he was scared about making this investment, but he said, like,
yeah,
listen, if it is to be, it's up to me. And so he's going to
yeah,
make it happen, and he's going to make this investment. And even if he doesn't know how to do it, he's going to find a way because guess what? He's tired of betting on everybody else's ability except his own. And so
mm,
even though he might be scared, he's going to do it scared because at least he has courage. Can anybody
yeah,
identify with that? So it's like that was a way of telling two different stories about myself that the audience is having conversations with in their mind. Because it's like when you can enter a conversation that somebody already has in their mind, they automatically think that you have the solution to help them, and they automatically feel like you understand what it's like to be them.
mm. Okay. All right. I got it.
And
Got it. I'm
it-
ready
It's,
to
it's
go.
it's a lot more that goes into it, but that's one of
I
the
know. No, I
you
know.
know.
No, I've been, because I've been studying storytelling as well, and I use it all the time. Uh, not necessarily my story though, and now I'm looking to incorporate like my story into the story
Mm, mhm.
that I'm telling, especially when it comes to selling either yourself or a service. Me specifically, a service or a product. I think you know, having your story attached to that, some sort of, whatever that story is, it makes more impactful because it kind of evens the playing field a little bit,
It does.
with you and your prospective buyers or whatever. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot just so I appreciate it. And I love your sayings, like you just spit them out real quick.
Uh,
If if what did you say? You said it real quick, and if it's meant to be, what was that one?
oh, if it's
If
meant
it's
to be,
meant
it's
to,
up to me.
yeah, it's up to me. There you go.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. All right. So I told you I was in the military,
Mhm.
and for someone who's transitioning out of the military, used to structure, order, a clear mission, like how would you suggest they begin uncovering the value of their personal story in a civilian or an entrepreneurial context, you know?
I think one thing that's so fascinating to me for every single person that's ever entered the military is their reason for going. You know, like
Mm,
when you share your story for going, it's like it's so much more depth into that story like that you shared that could be unpacked, but it's really
yeah,
interesting because
yeah.
you can relate that story to sales, you can relate it to leadership, you can relate it to marketing, coaching. Like it's so many different ways you can use that same story and lend itself to so many, like different things. So I think like going back and thinking about what made you join when you even joined, like what was the
Mhm.
motivation, what was the inspiration? But also I think that's something that's also fascinating is like the day you got in, you know, maybe after being there for a week, like was it what you expected? Was it totally different? Were you scared? Like what did you learn? Like it's so many different stories wrapped up in that people
Yeah,
connect to that's never stepped foot in the military because they felt those emotions that you felt at some point, you know?
yeah.
And I also think that it's really important for people to understand, specifically military, to understand that the military is not their identity. It's something
Mhm.
they did with a portion of their life for a specific time,
Yeah,
because like I would say over the last probably 5 years, I've coached a lot more military people that want to go into business and they don't have an identity outside of the military because it's like they never saw the military as something that they were doing. They saw the military as something that they were being. And so it's
yeah,
like their entire identity has been wrapped up into, colonel, major. And it's like, no, like that's a rank that you got based on something that you did, but that's not
yeah.
who you are. And so I think like
Mm,
that whole identity piece is something that's important to disconnect from. Again, you did it. You want to be honored for that. Like, that's great, but that's what you did. That's not who you are. But even people
mm.
talking about like that kind of story, like, hey, I felt lost. I didn't know who I was. Everybody can relate to that because you have people that are making $1 million in a day. And there's times where they still feel lost. They feel like an imposter.
Yeah.
Like, man, who am I? Like, am I this money, or am I this product, or am I, whatever the case may be. So like there's different ways that people specifically in the military can use different stories to connect and relate to anybody on any level. And I'll say this, like when it comes to selling, we're all in sales. Like whether we got to sell our wives, our kids, our children, ourselves, our clients, like,
Yeah.
we're all in sales. However, most of
Yeah.
us hate to buy. Like we love to buy, but we hate being sold. Like that's the thing. Like we
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're
people
saying.
selling us, but we love to buy. And when you can tell stories effectively, you don't come across as somebody who's selling. You come across as somebody who's allowing this person to understand that you know what it's like to be them. And so they
Mhm.
automatically want to lean in and know, like, well, how can you help me get to where you are? And so it's no longer you selling them, it's now your story selling them on them selling themselves why they should work with you. Because again, like, when we think about sales, we think about, like the used car salesman that everybody
Mhm.
wants to avoid, or the timeshare person that's trying to pressure us. We don't like those people, but we love to buy. And so stories help you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Oh, man, I sit and I think about the people man, I got, like in my house, it says, what is it? No solicitation.
Same here.
But they still come and knock on
Still
the
come.
door, right?
Still come.
And the first thing I do is I'll look at the sign, and then depending on my mood, sometimes I'll entertain it because I wanna see how they're gonna try to sell me. And some people are very good because to your point, it doesn't. And then I think let me think back. They do apply some sort of a story
Mhm.
about themselves, right? But some of them are very crafty,
Yeah.
and it's almost believable, and it's, like, authentic, and it feels like, they're really talking to me.
Yeah.
They're not selling to me, to your point.
Yeah.
And I'll listen, and I'll give them a shot. Some of the things they selling, I'm just not interested
Right.
in it.
Right.
And then some of it, I'm like, "Oh, you made a compelling argument.
Yeah.
Let me tell me more."
Yeah.
Right? But most of the time, I'm like, "Why are you knocking on my daggone door when it says no no solicitation?" Good gracious. Um, No, but we are always selling something.
Yeah.
We're always selling something. And understanding, I think the hardest, I don't like to sell. I'm in a sales organization. I'm not a salesperson,
Mm.
but I'm in a sales organization and I have to sell a service, right? So people say, hey, we want your service. Like they call me to come in and kind of pitch it.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So, but I'm not selling, widgets and stuff like
Right.
that. I'm actually selling a service. And when I go in, like I just went to this class, this leadership class, and they were talking about storytelling. I try to tell my team about storytelling. I'm talking to you about storytelling. And there are some commonalities, some things that overlay. And each time I have these conversations, I'm trying to figure out how do I better
Mm.
my story. So I'm very thankful. You thank me for serving in the military. I'm very thankful for you giving me some insights on how to craft a story. And I'm probably going to talk to you after this. Not necessarily today, but
Right. Yeah.
after this, just for some clarity on things. But you've been pretty clear. But I should say not clarity, but specifics.
Got you.
To me.
Got you.
But I really believe that we all have the ability to sell.
Yeah.
And if we understand that we do it all the time, Mom, I want McDonald's chicken nuggets. It makes me feel wonderful inside, and that experience, whatever it is, right? You learn young,
Yeah.
you learn young to kind of sell what it is that you want. And
Yeah.
if you understand that was a simple, explanation, a simple example, but
Yeah.
I think if you know it, then your next step is to figure out how to develop it. And that's talking to you, Chris. That's talking to people like that who can help you kind of just mold that story and make it, a high ticket story.
Yeah. Yeah. Premium offer. Yeah.
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 Premium. Now you're going to use my word.
Yeah.
I went to
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. And I tell you, Lee,
Hey,
I think something that's really important for people to understand, and you said it, like,
mhm,
we're always selling. And even when you're selling a widget, a service, or whatever, you think about kids, and you just gave a great example. We're not selling information. Like sales is not a transference of information. Trail
mhm,
is a transference of energy.
mm,
And that's why like the internal story is so important, because sometimes even though people don't know what it is, like they can pick up on what you're feeling inside.
yeah.
Like the words, yeah, we hear the words, you got the script down, all that kind of stuff, but we don't understand what we're saying with our body language, with the energy that we have,
All of that. Yeah.
because like people don't understand, but 93% of everything that you communicate has nothing to do with your words. Your words are only
Mm,
7% of your communication. And so it's like you can lie with your words, but you can never lie with your body. That's why even like you understand in the military, like they teach you different things, body. So you can lie with your words all the time, but your body would never lie. And so that's why like the
yeah.
internal story is so important, because when you are authentic and you're real, like sometimes what you say is not as important as what you feel and what you believe. Because when you're
Yeah.
selling somebody, the first person that has to be sold is you. Because once you sell
Mhm.
you, it's so much easier to sell everybody else. And I remember
Mm,
somebody told me years ago, they said when it comes to selling or speaking or any kind of communication, a prepared man is better than a prepared message.
mm.
And that focuses on the internal, because when you are prepared, like
See what I'm saying?
internally, it does not matter like how much you craft something, you write it down, you try to script something out. A prepared man is always better than a prepared message. And so it's like sometimes people make the mistake of focusing more on what they're going to say versus how they're showing up and who they are in their being. Cause like
Mhm.
that's what people buy.
Mm. I'm just writing them down, Chris. I'm just writing them down. I'm telling you, man, I'll be slinging these things around. Look, a prepared man is always better than a prepared message, and I
Indeed.
just need you to believe that. I'm prepared. So, hey, I asked you a few questions,
Okay.
um, and I appreciate your insight and your drilling down into certain things. But is there anything that we didn't cover that that you like to cover or you wish that we had?
I think we covered, most of it because like the big thing is just really understanding that there's two different stories, the internal and the external, and I think
Yeah.
when people understand that, like they can see, maybe when their insecurities or fears are activating, or when they're empowered and they feel confident or courageous, but I think awareness is a big thing. And I think based on us talking about the two different stories, I think that gives people, a good awareness, and just through
Yeah.
different examples that you gave and I gave, I think it's been really good.
Yeah, man. Internal and external. Oh, I used to always say when we used to go on runs. So we were in Hawaii and we would go on these runs around the post, Schofield Barracks.
Hmm.
And they'd be long runs and they, be pretty fast, So it wasn't just a little shuffle that you see the Air Force
Okay.
do. Like, like we'd be running. And we would run out of these quads. So it was like, buildings that are, it's 4 buildings and they're in a square.
Mhm.
And there's a way that we come out. So we say we'll be in formation and we'll march out this one way and then we'll just run all around post. What happens is when we come back, like our colonel or whatever, we would come back to the way that we came in.
Mhm.
That's where he would come back to. And I would always tell him, probably like a quarter mile out, hey, get your mind right.
Mm.
Because that internal
Yeah.
storytelling is happening. Oh, we're almost done. We're just about finished. I'm so tired.
Yep.
I got to, whatever it is. My legs hurt. My feet hurt. Whatever. It starts going because you see the end.
Right.
I'm like, get your mind right. Get your mind right. Because we ain't stopping there.
Right.
We would always go. He would do it constantly. Like we would go and we'd get to that end point and he'd run right past it.
Mm.
And he'd go past another quad all the way through and then come back around and come in the other side. But what happened is a lot of these individuals who couldn't get their mind right because they was focusing too hard on that negative internal story.
Yeah.
Once we got to that point where they thought we were going to stop,
Mm-hmm.
they stopped.
Yep.
And for the people who had the positive, okay, let me get my mind right. Let's keep going. When we went past it, they kept going.
Yeah.
Their caps were a little bit higher.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? They believed in themselves. They bought into the belief that they can continue to go. They can continue to
Right.
push themselves. So, for you reiterating the internal, the external stories, like you really got to pay attention to what your mind is telling you.
Yeah.
And you really gotta hone in and take control because it's you.
Yes.
It's you. Like you can control all of this. So anyway, I'm on a tangent.
No, that's great.
Get your mind right, people.
That's right.
Get your mind right. Another analogy I like to talk about is grit.
Mm.
Get ready, it's time.
I like that.
Get ready, it's time.
I like that.
So all of that practice and all that, if you don't have a strong mind, when everything hits the fan, you're gonna stop.
Yeah.
You're gonna stop. You can't get through it. You can't get through it because it's time now. There's no theories or no hypothesis on what may happen. You've already went through the mind experiments, right? You've already went through all these exercises, and now it's time. Can you step up? Can you handle it?
Yeah.
And you can.
Yeah.
That's the point. You can handle it. You just got to believe that you can handle it.
Yeah. 100%.
So,
Yeah. And I love these two, examples and analogies that you gave. And I think one thing that you said that I really hope people got is that the people who expect it to be done at the end point, that's exactly where they're stopped at.
Mhm.
And it's like a lot of times we rise and we fall to the level of expectations that other people have of us, but more importantly than we have of ourselves.
Mm.
So I think that it's very important that whatever the finish line is, make yours at least a quarter mile past that, whatever a quarter mile is for you. So if you have a financial goal, like whatever that financial goal is, make it bigger. And it's not so much for you, but I think the one thing that we as humans, especially people that are compassionate and serve like yourself, we will
Mhm.
let ourselves down before we will somebody else. So when you think about, okay,
Yeah.
this quarter mile past the finish line, that's not for me. Like that's for my son, that's for my daughter, that's for my wife, that's for my brother, like that's for my mother.
Mhm.
And when you think about making it past that point for somebody you love, failure don't it no longer becomes an option. Cause you
Yeah.
feel it can like you have to do it because it's not for you. Cause it's easy to fail you, but it's almost impossible to fail somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like it. Hey, one more. I'll give you one more. I'll give you one more. It's a quick one.
Okay.
Push-ups.
Yeah.
We used to always do this. We used to always do push-ups. We like say, hey, do 50 push-ups. You get down there, even in the gym, bench pressing. Doesn't matter. All right, do 10. Bench 10 of them. Okay, 1, 2, 3. You do them. You start to get tired at 9. You get 10. They be like, all right, one more for the core, for the Army Corps.
Uh,
All right, give me one more for the whatever, right? Because your mind, they strengthen in your mind. So when it's time and you got to push, that Humvee out the way because of,
yeah.
whatever's happening, you got to run because there's no transportation coming. Like you get the grit.
Yeah.
Get ready. It's time now. This is what you get in your mind, your physical self ready for this moment right here. What you gonna do?
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's
I come
good.
up. I don't.
Like that's
I don't usually talk. I don't usually talk like this. You bringing it out of me. I'm trying to tell some stories. I like it. Hey, Chris, where can the listeners connect with you and learn more about your work in storytelling?
they can go to compellingstorytelling.com. So yeah, so
Mm,
compellingstorytelling.com. And there I do a training like going into a lot more depth of what I'm doing here. Number one, about stories, but how you can like accelerate your income, influence, and impact with stories, and like how to create high ticket offers at the same time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I love this conversation because we really focusing on the importance of storytelling,
Yeah.
right? So we talking about we all got a story, we all have an impactful story. We can connect with each other, we can help each other grow and learn, right? And your story is important, and Chris can help you to take that story and be able to, get it out to the masses, and then get paid for it, right?
Yeah.
And there's a power and an energy in that payment. There's a power for you and for the person who's receiving. That's an important thing because that resonated. I have so many. When you said the 37, it's always a 7 too. $37 one-time fee, 67 one-time fee. You're like, whatever, right? And you get it, and it doesn't even really affect you. It's just
Hmm.
it's so small a bit of money that you don't really mentally commit to it. You'd be like, all right, it's $37. I'm not losing anything. Let me get it, maybe.
Yeah.
Right, but if you putting 55,000 on the line, you like it better,
Ex-
and I'm going to buy in. My mind, I've bought into buying this package. So that's the first part. You've bought in. So now your mind has bought into learning and getting that knowledge. So yeah, get with Chris. I ain't saying he's gonna charge you
Nah.
$55,000. I'm just saying. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it matters. It matters. It's all about the psyche. It's all about the mind. Everybody out there is not trying to get rich off of you.
No.
And that's one thing, that's why I hate some salespeople, but I also being in a sales organization, I understand you got to sell, right? If it is what it is.
Yeah.
But some people are really looking out for your best interest. Some people are really looking out for bettering humanity,
Yeah.
and you need to get this message. And the only way you're really going to get attention is if you pay some money, right? Because that's an investment in you that hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
It hurts a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It hurts. And it's a crazy psychology, but I get it. And I really get it.
Yeah.
So many times I'm like, I ain't paying that money. But sometimes I have. And you know what? That's why I said it resonated. When I did, I focused on that.
Right.
I focused on what I put my money to.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Should I? Yeah. And I applied that $37 one-time fee. That always turns out to be well, you can upgrade for another $67, and then you can upgrade, so don't fall into that trap. Hey, but today's conversation with Chris Cannon reminded me and reminded us, hopefully, that your past doesn't define you
No.
and how you use it does. From childhood labels to global stages, Chris shows us, that storytelling is more than just a marketing tool. It's a path to healing, connection, and success. And Chris, I just want to personally thank you for sharing your truth and your strategies with me personally, selfishly, and with us today. And well, first of all, thank you.
No, thank you. My honor for being here. Yeah.
I always just keep running through. I forget to wait for the response. But and for the listeners out there, look, if you got value from this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, tune in next time for more inspiring conversations on Hindsight the Podcast, where we turn experiences into evolution. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for joining me here on Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. And while I have you here, why don't you take your mouse, go over and click on that subscribe button. No, not right there. Over to the right. No, down, right there. Boom. Thank you. Now, thank you for subscribing to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones.